the key bit into my palm like proof I hadn't dreamed the closing. Paperwork done, signatures still wet. I slid the shiny brass key onto a blue lanyard and clipped it to my belt loop like a teenager who just got a license and didn't trust herself not to lose it. My name is Peyton Harvey. I'm 29, and I draw blood for the hospital before most people hit snooze. First sticks start at 5 a.m. My alarm is 4:15. I saved for 2 years, moved numbers around 100 times, and today I closed on a small 2-bedroom in an HOA community on the east side. It's a 1998 townhome with beige carpet and a humming refrigerator. 1 room for sleep, 1 room for quiet. That's the dream. I walked through the place slow, shoelaces tapping on the tile. The living room was narrow but bright. The spare bedroom had a closet with a sliding mirror that made the room look bigger than it was. I cracked the window and heard nothing but a sprinkler and a distant leaf blower. It felt like I'd paid for silence. Before I brought a single box in, I set rules. I typed them out on my phone, then printed and taped them inside the hall closet next to the breaker panel like you'd post fire escape routes. House rules. No move-ins. Guests max 2 nights. 48 hours notice for any visit. No pets. I meant it kindly. I live alone. I like my job. I need sleep. The last apartment had a neighbour who vacuumed after midnight and a couple who argued in the stairwell. This place? I was buying peace. On the way back from the hardware store, I picked up a battery doorbell camera and a pack of command strips. The HOA is funny about exterior drilling, but the camera I chose was HOA safe. No holes, rechargeable battery, motion alerts to my phone. I stuck it right next to the doorframe, angled at my stoop and the walkway. I set it to medium sensitivity and tested the chime. The little light blinked like a heartbeat. That evening, I ate dinner with my parents, because that's the kind of day it was. You go sign your name 100 times, and then someone feeds you. My mum, Lauren, is 58 and believes in casseroles as a love language. My dad, Reed, is 60 and believes in not rocking boats. We met at their kitchen table, the one with a water ring from a Christmas punch bowl that never quite faded. I'm proud of you, my mum said, scooping chicken onto my plate. Her tone made proud sound like a hug and a warning. My dad clinked his fork on his glass. Big step, he said, and that was high praise from him. I put rules up, I said, because I wanted to say it out loud at least once before anyone tried to negotiate them. No move-ins, 2-night max for guests, 48 hours notice, no pets. My mum blinked at me like I'd recited a knock-knock joke. You'll relax once you're used to having a home, she said, patting my hand. I like guests, I said. Just not surprises. It's a 2-bedroom, my dad pointed out. What's the other room for? Quiet, I said. Sleep. A desk, maybe. A door I can close. Mum's mouth softened into that expression she uses when she thinks I'm being too particular. Keep the spare room for family only, she said. It's good to know we have somewhere to land if needed. That's not what spare means, I said lightly, trying to keep it easy. It's not a promise. It's a room. My sister came up even when she wasn't there. Cassandra is 31 and lives 20 minutes away with her husband, Brent Walker, who is 33. They move fast, talk fast, and treat convenience like it's a virtue. Mum stirred her tea. Cassandra's been exhausted with her hours. She could catch up on sleep there sometimes. 2 nights, sure, I said. With notice. No pets. I tried to smile when I said it, so it didn't sound like a courtroom order. Mum's eyebrows inched up. We're family, Peyton. I know, I said. And I did. Family was how I got my first car and the number for a good plumber. Family was also how you ended up with someone's luggage in your hallway, just for a bit, that turned into a month. Dad cleared his throat. It's your home, he said, not looking at my mum when he said it. You decide. We ate, and Mum told a story about her co-worker's grandson, and Dad asked if the HOA allowed grills. I said electric only. We talked about paint colours. We kept it polite. After dessert, Mum hugged me for a long time and kissed my forehead like I was still coming back from summer camp. "You'll settle in," she murmured. "It won't feel so strict." "It feels good," I said. "I can breathe in there." On the drive back to my townhome, the sky was sliding into dark, streetlights blinking awake. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. The screen lit up with a new family group chat titled Spare Room. The group chat spun up before I got home. Mum had named it Spare Room and set the icon to a little house. Confetti and heart emojis bloomed around, "So proud of you," and "Our girl," and then, tucked into the stream, a few pebbles. "Love knowing we have somewhere to land if needed," Mom wrote. Dad added a thumbs up and, "Congrats again. We'll help you move a chair or something this weekend." Cassandra chimed in with a selfie from her car, sunglasses on. "Can't wait to see it. I could catch up on sleep there between shifts, LOL." I stared at the screen and typed exactly what I'd taped inside my hall closet. "Thanks everyone for visits. 48 hours notice, 2 nights max, no pets, no move-ins. Can't wait to have you over. Love you." 3 eye-roll emojis from Cassandra popped up in a row like traffic lights. Mum replied with a winky face. "We know, Miss Rules." I let it sit. I carried 2 boxes in from my trunk, the coffee maker and a set of sheets, and set them on the counter. The house smelled like new paint and dust. I made sure the deadbolt turned smoothly. The camera blinked when I waved at it. My phone rang before I could break down a single box. Cassandra. "Hey," I said, tucking the phone between my shoulder and ear while I found scissors in a drawer. "Hey, homeowner," she sang. Brent's voice was loud in the background, some sports radio yammering. "Okay, serious question. Can we borrow the room for a few weeks? Just while our place gets sprayed for ants, and the landlord's dragging his feet, and the baby stuff is everywhere." "You don't have a baby," I said, because my mouth is sometimes faster than my filter. "I know, it's prep," she said. "Nesting? Also, the cat keeps knocking things over, and I just need a place to sleep, like, properly. We'd be out of your hair? You wouldn't even know we were there?" I leaned against my new counter and looked at the empty hallway, like it could give me strength. "Cass, no. 2 nights max for guests. With notice. No pets?" "We're family," she said, like it was a password, and I was failing a test. "And I love you," I said. "And I can't have people moving in. I start at 5. I'm up at 4:15. "I need quiet." She huffed air into the phone. "It's just a few weeks. You won't even see us. We can keep the cat in the carrier when you're home." "No pets," I repeated, softer this time, because the conversation was already sliding toward the ditch. "I'm not changing the rules I just set. I'll help you find a hotel that takes cats if you want." She went quiet long enough that I checked to see if the call had dropped. It hadn't. "You've changed," she said finally. "This is weird, Peyton." "I bought a house," I said. "That's the change. I'm still me." "Okay," she said, but her tone said not okay. "We'll figure something out." We hung up with a brittle, "Love you," and I stood there with my scissors and my coffee maker, and the feeling you get when you say no, and the room feels colder for a minute. I slept light, like I was listening for something. When my alarm chirped at 4:15, I swung my feet to the floor and told myself the camera wasn't going to catch anything surprising. I brushed my teeth in the quiet bathroom and watched the sky turn the colour of a bruise at the edges. The deadbolt clicked behind me. The camera blinked. The world smelled like wet concrete and coffee when I stepped out. By 10, I'd done rounds on 3 floors, and my Fitbit thought I was training for a race. I ate a banana standing up in the lab and checked the spare room chat. Mum had sent a photo of a lamp she thought would look cosy in a corner. Dad asked if the HOA allowed string lights on the patio. Cassandra hadn't said anything else. At noon, there was a lull, the kind where the tubes are labelled and you're waiting on the next batch of orders to print. I refilled gloves. Jayla, from microbiology, leaned in the doorway and asked if the new place felt real yet. I said the fridge hum was my favourite part. We laughed about that. My phone buzzed on the counter, a familiar vibration against stainless steel. The camera app pushed a banner. Front door, motion detected. I wiped my hands on my scrub top and tapped the notification without thinking. The live view snapped into focus, the fisheye catching my stoop and the stretch of walkway. Sun through hard shadows, the neighbour's fern trembled in the heat. Brent was in the frame, his face pinched with effort, hoisting a white crib up the steps like he was bringing a prize home. The crib slats flickered in the glare. Next to him, Cassandra's wrist swung a plastic pet carrier, the perforated sides flashing, the shape inside shifting as the cat thumped against it. A text from Cassandra hit before the video even finished loading. "We're here." I didn't answer. I didn't argue. I hit the non-emergency number we keep posted on the bulletin board at work and told the dispatcher exactly what I was watching. 2 people on my stoop, carrying a crib and a cat carrier, saying they were here after I'd told them no. I said no one had permission to enter my home. I gave my address and my phone number. She said an officer would respond. I hung up and called the HOA office. "Krista Stewart, Community Management," a brisk voice said. "Hi, this is Peyton Harvey at 214 Birch," I said. "I just closed yesterday. 2 people are trying to move into my home without permission. I have a doorbell camera, it's recording, and I've called the non-emergency line. Can someone from HOA security document this? If there are rules about unauthorized move-ins, I want to do this the right way." "Yes," she said immediately. "I'll head that way now and bring a violation form. Do not confront them if you're not on site." "Wait for law enforcement." "Understood," I said. Then the locksmith. "Rekey Mobile," a guy answered, traffic noise in the background. "I need my lock rekeyed today," I said. "Townhome, original hardware. Can you meet me within an hour?" "If you've got the deed or closing packet and ID, yeah," he said. "Text me the address. I can be there in 45. I texted, then went to my charge nurse. She glanced at the video paused on my phone. Brent's arms wrapped around a crib rail, the cat carrier wobbling from Cassandra's wrist, and didn't make me explain twice. "Go," she said. "You've got your drawers covered for the next hour. I'll page respiratory to hold the ABG until you get back. Call me if you need to stay out." The drive to the east side felt longer than it ever had. I hit every red light. My lanyard key thumped my hip with each turn, a little metronome to keep my breathing even. When I pulled into my spot, a patrol car was already angled at the curb, lights off. An officer stood by my front walk, body language relaxed but alert. Brent had one boot planted on my doormat, like a claim. The crib leaned against the stucco. Cassandra was scrolling on her phone, the cat carrier at her feet thumping every so often with a muffled yowl. I parked, smoothed my scrubs, and walked up. "I'm Peyton," I said to the officer, before anyone else could speak. "This is my home." "Officer Robinson," he said, nodding. The nameplate on his uniform read T. Robinson. He kept his voice even. "You made the call?" "Yes," I said. "I do not consent to them entering or staying here. They do not live here." Cassandra lifted her chin. "We're family," she said, like it was Exhibit A. Brent gestured at the crib. "We just need a place while our landlord deals with ants," he said. "She's being crazy." I kept my eyes on the officer. "I sent them my house rules yesterday. 2 nights max, 48 hours notice, no pets. They asked for weeks. I said no. I start work at 5. I need quiet to keep my job." Officer Robinson looked at me. "Do you have ID and proof of residence, ma'am?" I handed him my license and the manila envelope I'd thrown on the passenger seat after closing, the settlement statement peeking out, my name and address typed in bold. He checked, nodded, and handed them back. He turned to Cassandra and Brent. "You don't have permission to enter this residence," he said. "At this point, if you go inside, it's trespassing." "We were just putting the crib in the spare room," Brent muttered, like saying it made it reasonable. "You were putting the crib in my spare room," I corrected, still steady. "You don't live here." A white SUV rolled up then, HOA logo on the door. A woman in a navy polo climbed out with a clipboard and a phone. "Krista Stewart," she introduced herself, quick glance at me, then the stoop. I'll be taking photos and documenting an attempted unauthorized move-in for the association's records. Cassandra's eyes widened. This is ridiculous, she said, taking out her phone and tapping furiously. Mum's on her way. She doesn't need to be, I said. This isn't a debate. Krista stood back and took 3 photos. The crib, the carrier, Brent's boot braced on the doormat. Just so you know, she said to Cassandra and Brent without heat, our CC&Rs require prior approval for any change of occupancy over 72 hours. There was no application. This will be noted. A white van with magnetic signage pulled in, the locksmith's logo a key inside a shield. He stepped out with a small tool bag and glanced between me and the officer. You the rekey? He asked me. Yes, I said. Original hardware. I want to keep the same look. Just new pins. Got it, he said. I'll need about 15 minutes. Can I access the door? Officer Robinson looked at me. I took a breath and turned to Cassandra and Brent, who had not moved their things an inch. This is my home, I said, the words feeling like they were sitting on studs inside me. You don't live here? Officer Robinson's gaze stayed on me, professional and calm. Do you want them removed? He asked. Yes, I said. Officer Robinson nodded once. All right. Folks, step back off the porch, he said to Cassandra and Brent. You're not entering this residence. Gather your items and clear the walkway. Brent didn't move. We're not criminals, he said, hand on the crib rail like he was holding onto a principal. No one said you were, the officer said. You don't have permission to be here. That's the issue. Cassandra's eyes were shiny. She thumbed her phone and then held it out. Mom wants to talk to you, she said, hitting speaker before I could answer. Peyton? My mum's voice came through, small and tinny. This is dramatic. They're just tired. Let them put the crib down and rest until your shift is over. Be reasonable. I am being reasonable, I said, keeping my voice even because the officer was right there. I said 2 nights with notice and no pets. They showed up with a cat and a crib. Heartless, Cassandra said, and the word came out like a sob she'd been saving. Krista, steady behind her clipboard, glanced at me. I've documented the attempted unauthorized move-in, she said. There will be a $100 violation on your next statement, Peyton. I'll send you the notice by email today. Understood, I said, picturing the tally already starting in a neat little column in my head. The locksmith set down his bag. You ready for me? Yes, I said. Let's do it now. I unlocked the door, opened it wide, and stood in the entrance while he pulled the knob and set to work. The cat in the carrier thumped and yowled. Cassandra, crying now, set the carrier down on the threshold for a second and tilted it when she bent for a tissue. A sprinkle of litter bounced onto the beige strip of carpet just inside the door. I watched the granules like they were evidence. The cat's fur clung to the carpet fibres around the carrier feet in wisps that caught the light. Back, Officer Robinson reminded them, and Cassandra pulled the carrier up and away, retreating to the walkway. Brent finally lifted the crib and moved it off the mat, grumbling. This is insane. It's my home, I said again, because it helped steady me to say it out loud. The locksmith worked fast, pins clicking, a soft metallic rain. He tested the new key twice, then handed me 2 brass copies. Same look, new code, that's $164, tax included, he said. I paid on his phone with my card and had him text me the receipt. He stepped aside so I could relock the door. The bolt slid with a smooth, new sound. Here's your notice, Krista said, handing me a printed form with my address and the citation code highlighted. You'll get an email copy as well. Thank you, I said. Officer Robinson addressed Cassandra and Brent. You need to leave. If you return without permission, you could be cited for trespassing. Brent rolled his eyes, but started down the path. Cassandra sniffled, shoulder checking the air. We'll be back with Mum, she said. If you come back, call me first, I said. With notice. For a visit. No pets. They didn't answer. The cat yowled like a door hinge as they disappeared around the hedge. I texted my charge nurse. I need the rest of the day. She replied a minute later with a thumbs up and, "We've got you covered." I took photos of everything left in their wake. The sprinkle of litter on the carpet just inside my door, the wisps of cat hair, the smudge from Brent's boot on the edge of the threshold. Time-stamped. Then I pulled on gloves from the box I'd already tucked under my sink, 'cause old habits die hard. On the stoop, they'd left 2 plastic totes and a folded litter box. I didn't want a violation for obstruction or trash, and I didn't want them using it as an excuse to linger tomorrow. I dragged the totes just inside, photographed the labels, seized clothes and linens, then taped them shut with blue painter's tape and wrote the date across both lids. The litter box got double-bagged, sealed and labelled. I locked up and drove to the grocery store. 30 minutes later, I was back with a Rug Doctor rental and a bottle of the good enzyme solution. $52. Receipt folded into my wallet. I vacuumed up the loose granules, ran the cleaner over the patch until the water stayed clear, then did one more pass because the beige always hides in plain sight and then betrays you in daylight. For storage, I wasn't keeping their stuff in my living room. The HOA has a clause about items visible from the exterior, and I wasn't giving anyone else a reason to wander up. I called the closest storage facility and rented a 5x5 for the month. $41 with a move-in promo, month to month. I loaded the 2 totes and the bagged litter box into my trunk, drove the 3 minutes to the facility, and slid them into Unit B12. I photographed the unit number, the lock, and the contents. I texted the access code to Cassandra with a simple note. "Your items are here for pickup. Please coordinate with me for a time." I went home, showered off the sweat of adrenaline, and sat at my little table with my laptop and a glass of water. I typed an email to Cassandra and Brent, CCing my parents because silence turns into stories. "Hi. Today, you attempted to move into my home without permission. Below are the costs I incurred as a result. Locksmith rekey, $164, and receipt attached. HOA violation for attempted unauthorized move-in, $100, notice attached. Carpet cleaning for litter, cat hair inside entry, $52, receipt attached. 1 month storage for your items, $41, receipt attached. Total due, $357. Please reimburse within 14 days via check or Venmo. If you need a payment plan, tell me what you can do." I attached the photos and receipts and hit send. Then I copied the same breakdown into the spare room group chat for transparency. The chat lit up like a slot machine. Mum, this is not how family handles things. Dad, let's all calm down. We can talk Sunday. Brent, you're shaking us down. Cassandra, unbelievable. I put my phone face down. It buzzed on the table, scooting a little with each message. When I finally turned it over, a new bubble from Cassandra sat at the bottom, clean and hard as a stone. "We're not paying you a penny." The next morning, I woke up before my alarm with that tight feeling in my chest, the one that makes you listen for sounds that aren't there. The house was still. The new deadbolt clicked cleanly when I tested it, a neat mechanical yes. I checked my email and saw Krista's notice, PDF with my address, citation code, $100 in bold. I slid it into a folder on my desktop I named House, Docs, and added the locksmith receipt, the Rug Doctor rental, the storage contract, and the photos I'd taken. I screenshotted the doorbell video where Brent's boot was on my doormat, the text from Cassandra that said, "We're here," and the group chat where she wrote, "We're not paying you a penny." I gave them 24 hours to cool off. Nothing cooled. Mum texted, "Let's all take a breath," then switched to silence. Cassandra sent one more. "This is petty, Peyton." Brent added, "Ants everywhere. Thanks for nothing." Then it went quiet in a way that felt less like peace and more like stage lighting going down. On my lunch break the next day, I drove to the county courthouse with a manila folder on the passenger seat. The building smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. A metal detector hummed. A security guard nodded me through. I asked the information desk for small claims, and followed arrows past marriage licenses and probate into a room with plexiglass windows and a take-a-number machine that printed on pink paper. When my number flashed, I stepped up to the window. The clerk wore a cardigan the colour of oatmeal and had a voice that sounded like she'd said the same sentences 1,000 times and didn't mind saying them again. "I'd like to file a small claim," I said. "I'm seeking reimbursement for costs from an attempted unauthorised move-in at my home." "Okay," she said, sliding me a form. "Fill this out. You can attach exhibits. Filing fee is at the bottom." I printed slowly, block letters, names and addresses I knew too well. Plaintiff, Peyton Harvey. Defendants, Cassandra Harvey Walker and Brent Walker. Amount claimed, $350 plus filing fee. Narrative, on date, defendants attempted to move into my residence without permission. I incurred the following costs: locksmith to rekey after the attempt, HOA violation fee issued due to their attempted unauthorised move-in, carpet cleaning due to pet litter and hair tracked inside, and 1 month of storage for their items, which I removed to a storage facility. I attached the HOA notice, receipts, photos, and screenshots. I slid the packet back with my ID and card. The clerk stamped the top with a red date, the sound sharp and satisfying. "We can serve by certified mail," she said. "Add their mailing address here. If certified fails, you'll need to arrange personal service." I wrote their address, triple-checking the apartment number. The fee stung when I handed my card back, not because it was outrageous, but because the principle of paying to be heard always does. She gave me a case number on a thin receipt and an envelope with copies. "That's it?" I asked, half surprised. "That's it," she said. "If service is successful, you'll get a postcard with your hearing date." I stepped outside into noon sun and a light wind that lifted the edges of the papers in my folder. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Back at the hospital, Jayla found me in the break room by the ice machine. "How'd it go?" she asked, popping the top on a yogurt. "I filed," I said, and set the folder on the table between us like proof. She tapped the case number with her nail. "Okay, Miss Organised, we're making you a binder." We spent 20 minutes on our next lull building quiet armour. She printed my exhibits 2 to a page and slid them into sheet protectors from the supply closet. We added tabs: camera, video still, texts, HOA notice, receipts, photos, entry, storage. She quizzed me in a neutral voice. "Why did you rekey?" "Because people attempted to enter without permission and had a copy of my schedule." "Why the carpet cleaning?" "Because litter and cat hair were tracked inside." "What are your house rules?" 2 nights max, 48 hours notice, no pets." "Keep it boring," she advised. "Judges like boring." Facts, not feelings. At home, the new lock did its quiet click, and I could feel the house settle around me like a garment I'd tailored to fit. I ate dinner standing at the counter and stacked my shoes by the door in a row, like soldiers keeping watch. At night, every creak made me think of the cat carrier bumping my threshold, and then the memory wore itself out. I slept a little deeper. 2 days after I filed, an email from the court clerk confirmed the certified mail had gone out. I didn't hear from anyone. The spare room chat shifted to weather, and a coupon Mum found for patio furniture. No one said the word small claims. My dad called and asked if I needed help hanging curtains, which was his version of checking if I was still mad. I said I had it handled. A week later, a beige postcard appeared in my mailbox with my name pre-printed and the county seal in faded blue. Hearing scheduled, Tuesday, 9 a.m. It didn't say which Tuesday, but the date stamped below gave me 3 weeks. I stuck it on my fridge with a magnet shaped like a kiwi and wrote the date on my calendar in black ink. The quiet thickened around the edges of days. I went to work, I came home, I watered a basil plant that had started to look cocky in the kitchen window. I stopped checking the camera feed every hour. The new rhythm felt strange and careful and good, in a way I didn't quite trust yet. Thanksgiving came and went with a microwave dinner, and a silence I both hated and needed. Thanksgiving crept up in the quiet, the way the house had taught me days can. The hospital ran leaner that morning. Fewer drawers, half the staff in pumpkin earrings and turkey scrubs. By noon, I was home with plastic utensils and a microwave tray that promised gravy if you punctured the film just right. I plugged in an electric throw blanket on the couch and let it warm my knees while the oven that wasn't beeped. The basil on the windowsill had overgrown its pot and leaned toward the weak sun like it knew something I didn't. The camera app showed a still stoop. The new lock gave that neat yes when I tested it. A ritual now, like washing my hands. Mom texted at 3. A crowded table, the pine hutch in the background, my aunt's green beans in the chipped white bowl we've used since I was a kid. "Wish you were here," she wrote. A heart. Another text followed, a candid of my dad carving turkey while cousins leaned in. Everyone caught mid-laugh. No one asked to put me on speaker. I typed back, "Looks delicious. Love you. Save me a roll." She hearted the message and sent a photo of pie like a peace offering. I ate my mashed potatoes too fast and felt sleepy at once, the way starch does. The blanket hummed. The house made small sounds. Refrigerator cycle, a pipe somewhere clicking like a polite throat clear. I thought about how last year this hour would have been filled with different noise. A niece dropping a fork, someone yelling from the driveway to hold the door, Mum calling for someone to set out more plates. It wasn't better or worse, I told myself. It was new. Around 5, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't expect. Cassandra had posted a photo. I don't check her feed much. It's a lot of selfies and latte art. But the thumbnail was familiar enough to make my stomach pitch. The white crib, leaned against a wall I didn't recognize. A faint outline where something had hung before. Her caption read, "Some people forget what family means." I looked at it without clicking like that would make it less real. Then I took a screenshot anyway. I printed it on my little home printer that wheezes like an old dog and tucked it behind a tab in the binder Jayla and I made. Not out of spite. Just doing it properly calmed me down. I added Mum's table photo too, not because it proved anything to a judge, but because the date stamp mattered to me. Thanksgiving happened. I was here. They were there. On Friday, I went back to work and drew blood from a man who made a joke about cranberry sauce and clotting. The ordinary world kept going, which was a relief. Jayla caught me by the specimen fridge and asked if I wanted to run through answers one more time. We sat with styrofoam coffee, and she played judge, eyes bland on purpose to make me practice not filling silences. "Why did you change the locks?" she asked. "Because after they attempted to enter, I wanted to ensure my safety and property were secure," I said, working to keep my sentences short. "Why storage?" "So their items weren't in my home and I wasn't in violation with the HOA. I documented everything and provided access." She nodded. "And your rules?" 2 nights max, 48 hours notice, no pets." I could say it in my sleep now. That night I sorted papers again, added a printout of Krista's email attaching the violation notice, highlighted the $100 and slipped it into the receipts section. I checked the tracking on the certified mail. Delivered, signatures. The beige postcard on my fridge with the court date had started to look like it had always lived there. I ran my finger over the raised ink of the county seal and then let my hand fall. The weekend slid by with laundry and a walk around the block where I memorized which porches had pumpkins left long past their prime. I checked on the storage unit once, still locked, the 2 totes upright, the bagged litter box at the back, like it might slink away if not watched. Unit B12. $41 I could account for. Monday night, I laid a black cardigan over the chair in my bedroom and set my house rules printout beside my keys. I packed the binder, a copy of my settlement statement, my ID, and a pen that writes smoothly even on triplicate forms. I set my alarm for a normal time and felt weirdly steady. My plan was boring, which was the point. In the morning, traffic was calm. The courthouse lot had more open spots than I expected. Inside, the same lemon cleaner smell hit, the same metal detector hum. I checked in at the small claims window, showed my postcard, and took a seat on a hard bench that had probably held 10,000 versions of me. When I stood up to stretch, I saw them at the end of the hall near a potted ficus. Cassandra in a cardigan I'd seen a dozen times. Brent in a jacket he thought made him look older. My mum smoothing her skirt. My dad with his hands in his pockets. They clustered like a weather system. Not one of them met my eyes. They called our case at 9:06. The judge looked like he'd been doing this since breakfast and didn't plan to be impressed by anybody. We stood at two lecterns, me on the left with my binder, Cassandra and Brent on the right with empty hands, and my parents in the row behind them like moral support. The clerk swore us in. My mouth felt dry when I said, "I do," but my hands stayed steady on the binder. The judge glanced at the file. "Miss Harvey, you're the plaintiff. Briefly tell me what this is about." I kept it boring, the way jailer had drilled. On the date in my complaint, my sister and her husband attempted to move into my home without my permission. I had established house rules, 2 nights max for guests, 48 hours notice, no pets, and I had already told them no. They arrived with a crib and a cat carrier. I called the non-emergency police line and HOA security. As a result of the attempt, I paid to rekey my lock. I was fined by my HOA for an attempted unauthorized move-in. I cleaned the carpet where litter and pet hair were tracked inside, and I rented a storage unit for their items so I would not be in violation. I invoiced them for $350, and they refused to pay. "Do you have proof of those expenses?" the judge asked, already reaching for the file. "Yes." I slid the binder forward. The tabs looked ridiculous for a second, and then I liked them again. "Receipts for the locksmith, carpet cleaner rental, storage, and the HOA notice." He flipped. "And proof of the attempted move-in?" "I have a time-stamped photo from my doorbell camera of Mr. Walker with a crib on my steps and a text from Ms. Walker saying, 'We're here.' The HOA manager also issued the violation, and I have that email." The judge nodded at the clerk, who took the binder and handed it up. He scanned the top page, then the still photo. "Do you have the video?" "It's on my phone," I said, holding it up. "There's no audio." "Let me see the stills," he said. And I didn't argue. He slid the photo closer to him. The angle from the fisheye made Brent look like he was leaning in. The cat carrier sat at Cassandra's feet like punctuation. He turned to their lectern. "Ms. Walker? Mr. Walker?" Cassandra drew a breath. "We weren't trying to move in," she said, voice edged. "We just needed a place to rest while our landlord dealt with ants. We're family. This is being blown out of proportion." Brent added, "We were just putting the crib somewhere safe. We wouldn't have stayed long. She's making us pay for her choice to change her locks." "Did you ask to stay for a few weeks?" the judge asked without looking up. Cassandra's mouth flattened. "I asked to borrow the room." "After being told no," he said. She stared past him at the seal on the wall. "She's always had rules." "Did you bring a cat?" he asked. Brent shifted. "We have a cat." "That's not what I asked," the judge said, still even. "Did you bring a cat to her home despite her no pets rule?" He didn't answer. My mum shifted in the bench behind them. I could hear the whisper of her skirt. The judge slid the HOA notice forward, tapped the $100 line with his pen, looked at the locksmith receipt, then at the storage contract. "Ms. Harvey," he said to me, "you invoiced them?" "Yes." I emailed them with a 14-day window. I also sent it in our family group chat for transparency. "Response?" he asked, eyes back on Cassandra. She squared her shoulders. "We said we weren't paying. It's petty." The judge sat back. "All right. In small claims, I'm looking at whether the costs are reasonably related to the defendant's actions. Here, Miss Harvey had established boundaries. You were told no. You arrived with belongings and a pet, which triggered an HOA response and her reasonable decision to rekey and clean. She stored your items rather than leaving them at the door. The amounts are modest and documented." He uncapped his pen, already writing. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $357 plus allowable costs, including the filing fee, payable within 30 days. The gavel tap was small, just a polite thunk on wood, and yet it felt bigger in my chest than it should have. The clerk handed my binder back with a carbon copy of the judgment. I slid it into the front pocket without looking at the total again. In the hallway, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and nerves. My mum stepped away from the ficus and toward me just enough to say, "You didn't have to do all this," soft, as if we were in a church. "I had to protect my home," I said. My voice didn't shake. It wasn't a speech. It was the truth. My dad's hands went deeper into his pockets. Brent looked at the floor. Cassandra stared past me like there was something better to see on the far wall. No one said my name. I tucked the judgment into my tote, pulled my cardigan tighter, and walked toward the exit. Outside, the winter light was thin and clean. I checked the time. If I hurried, I could still make second-round draws. The next weeks were ordinary in the way I'd wanted all along. The basil plant tried to die, and then remembered how to live with less water. The HOA statement arrived with a $100 charge I'd already paid, black type on white paper like nothing dramatic had happened on a sidewalk. I didn't check the camera as much. Sometimes at night, I still reached for the deadbolt, turned it, and listened to the neat click because I liked the sound. A money order in the mail, no note, covered the judgment total and the filing fee on day 28. I took it to the bank on my way home from work, fed it into the ATM, and watched the numbers adjust. 3 months later, my phone buzzed while I was labeling a rack of tubes. The message preview made me pause long enough that jailer bumped my shoulder and raised an eyebrow. I swiped it open. "Can I visit Saturday, 2-4? Just me. No pets, no boxes." I looked at the clock. I could feel my own breathing. Then I typed back, simple as the click of a lock, "Yes." I wiped the tiny table, even though it was already clean, and set out 2 paper plates, 2 forks, and a roll of paper towels, because napkins still weren't a thing I remembered to buy. At 1:55, I put on a fresh pot of coffee. At 1:57, I stood by the door and did nothing because bouncing would look like nerves. At 1:55 by her clock, there was a knock. 1, then 2, close together. I checked the peephole anyway. Cassandra, alone, holding a plastic clamshell pie and her purse. No carrier, no boxes. I opened the door. Hey, she said, stepping back half a foot like she wanted to show me her hands were empty. "I'm 5 minutes early. Is that okay?" "It's okay," I said, and moved aside. She set the pie on the counter and tugged the sticker to show the flavour. Apple, store-bought, the kind with the lattice that looks a little too perfect. "I didn't bake," she said, "but I brought sugar." "Coffee's on," I said. "Do you want cream?" "Black is fine." She stood there for a second, hands on the edge of the counter like she was bracing, then said, "I'm sorry. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." It didn't come with excuses. It didn't ramble. I poured coffee and nodded, because I didn't have a speech ready either. "Thank you," I said. "I appreciate that." We sat. The chairs made that scraping sound on the tile, familiar in a good way. I cut the pie unevenly, and we laughed about that. We talked about the weather first, because that is what you do when you are closing a distance, how the mornings had finally cooled off, how the basil in my window had gone leggy, how the HOA had put a wreath on the pool gate that was trying too hard. She told me her hours had shifted, not better or worse, just different. "Late close one night, early open the next," she said, rolling her eyes. "I'm trying not to complain." "I know those," I said. "I have 2 days next week with a 4:15 alarm, and then a Saturday with a 6. I feel rich when it's 6. She smiled. "You like your quiet." "I do," I said. I looked at the hallway, the closed doors, and felt that same anchored feeling as the day in the courtroom. My spare room is how I keep it. It's not a promise. It's part of how I stay afloat. She nodded, not arguing. "I know. I acted like it was a family guest pass. That wasn't fair. She sipped her coffee and then glanced toward the hall. Can I see it? Just to admire it, not to measure it. Sure. We stood. I opened the door like I was showing off something grand. The room looked exactly how I wanted it to. A made bed with a folded quilt my aunt gave me, a small, empty desk in the corner, blinds tilted to let in light without glare, nothing stacked in corners, no litter dust catching sunlight. Cassandra laughed. Not mean, just at the ordinariness. It looks like a catalogue for peace, she said. In a good way. It looks like a nap, I said, and we both smiled. Back at the table, we carved into the pie again. She told me a story about a co-worker who tried to microwave fish in the break room and the mutiny that followed. I told her about a patient who called me Vampire Barbie and then apologized 3 times in a row. It felt normal in a way that wasn't pretend. She glanced at her phone at 3:56 and set it face down. I'm going to head out on time, she said. I want to get this right. Thank you, I said again. I walked her to the door. She looked at the new lock without touching it, like a person noticing a boundary instead of testing it. On the stoop, she hesitated. I picked up the storage stuff a while back, she said. I should have thanked you sooner for labelling it, and not just dumping it. You're welcome, I said. It was easiest for everyone. Yeah. She pulled her cardigan closer. I'll text next time, if there is a next time. Do, I said. With notice. It came out lighter than I felt it. We hugged, quick and careful, like truce. She went down the walkway toward visitor parking, the pie clamshell under her arm like a football. I closed the door. The deadbolt turned with that neat yes I loved. I rinsed the coffee mugs and left the plates in the trash because I could. I set my alarm for 4:15 and put my badge and keys next to the hall closet where the rules were still taped. I didn't need to look at them to remember. When I slid into bed that night, the house made its small sounds again. Refrigerator, pipe, a car passing on the main road and then gone. I didn't brace. The quiet felt full instead of empty, like a room set up and then left as is on purpose. In the morning, I woke just before the alarm. I reached for my phone and checked the camera app like I always do. The log showed a blank list, white and clean. No motion detected, it read, and for once, that felt like love.